Hello and welcome to another Crafty Friends Together premiere video tutorial. Today I'm going to be covering the Slimline card. Now, Slimline cards, which are essentially this sort of profile, more long and skinny. It could be this way up, or you could have it this way. They have gained in popularity in the last 2 to 3 years, and now the mini Slimline card, which is exactly what it says on the tin, it's just a smaller version of a Slimline card, is also becoming very popular. Now, Slimline cards, or DL cards, are nothing new in the card making world. Back in the day, you would find these long, skinny cards in your card shop. But they have made a resurgence, as I said, and now you will find them in all sorts of dimensions and in various configurations. And I'm going to go over some of those today. Like this one, for example, is a piece that I've cut to 7.5 by 7.5, and I've just scored it at 3 3/4. And that is not necessarily a standard size. It's just the size that I wanted to make with this. Now, in the UK, the DL card would have been the standard version of what is now referred to as a Slimline card. The DL is a third of an A4 sheet, and an A4 sheet in inches is approximately 8.25 by 11 3/4, but it's just a little off from that. So when you take a third of that, then you would get that shape. So we'd have to double up. So it's the actual width, which is 8.25, and then you would have a third. So you would have 2/3 that you would cut. Now, to make things easy, what I've done is cut this one at 8.25 by, let me be sure I've got the measurement right, by 7 3/4. So, just to make it a little easier to work with inches. As I said, there are no really standard sizes for when it comes to Slimline cards. If you do a search for making Slimline cards on the internet, you will come up with 5, maybe even 6 different sizes that people are making. So it really is down to your personal preference, or in the case where you have to stick with the envelopes that you have on hand, you want to be sure that your card is going to fit within that envelope. Otherwise, you can make your own envelopes, and so the world is your oyster at that point. So today, I've selected several different variations of the Slimline to show you. I'm going to keep my decoration fairly simple, just to keep the time down, because I really want to show you the basic principles of making this style of card, and give you some ideas to get your creative juices flowing, and hopefully you'll be making Slimline cards yourself. So let me go through these, and the first piece that I have is this DL, which is 8 1/4 by 7 3/4. Right, and I'm going to score this on the 8 3/4 inside at 3 7/8. Okay, so that will give me a card that is 8 1/4 inches long and 3 7/8 inches in depth. So that is that DL card. Now, the more popular cards is the 8 1/2 by 7. So this is half. This 8 1/2 is the width of your letter size card. Now I had to cut this cardstock I had to accommodate that, because, as I said, A4 only goes up to 8 1/4. So I had some A3 card, which I cut to this size. And for this one, what you do is you lie it on the 8 1/2 inch side, and you come down the middle of it at 3 1/2. So you put it on the 7 inch side and come down at 3 1/2. Okay, and then you fold that over like that. And there's your US. You can see it's just that little bit longer, but a little bit more narrow in depth here than the DL. Here's another one. Here is a 6 by 6, which is a very popular size as well, because this is a good opportunity for you to use your 6 by 6 cardstock that you might have and your papers. So if you have a 12 by 12 sheet of cardstock, you'll get 2 Slimline cards out of that. These are the mini Slimlines. Now this, I'm going to score at 3 inches. Okay, it's right down the middle. But it doesn't matter on this one which way you turn it, because it's the same dimensions on both sides. Unless, of course, you had a pattern cardstock that you were going to use, and you want to be sure that the orientation is right. So that is a 6 by 6. I've got another 6 by 6, and I'm going to go ahead and score this because I have special plans for this one, which I'll show you in just a little bit. Here we have a 6 1/2 by 6 1/4. On the 6 1/2, we're going to score at 3 1/4. And we have this. So you see, in comparison, what you have with your mini. And this in the US is not going to cost you any more to post than it would just your regular letter size card. Finally, I have these two pieces. One is cut at 6 3/4 and the other at 6 1/4, and they're both 3 1/4 inch wide. This, on the 6 3/4 one, I'm going to score it at 1/2 inch, just on the one side, and all shall be revealed. Start with our DO. So again, that was 3 3/4, I'm sorry, by 8 1/4. So I've got my mat and layer. Now these cards, I don't know if I mentioned it, but if not, you can fold them so that they are side opening like that, or indeed tent opening like this. So I'm going to make a tent fold one, so a top folding card. And I've got my mat and my layer, and all I've done is just cut each of these 1/4 inch smaller than the one beneath it. So my card base at 8 1/4 by 7 3/4 means that this piece is now cut at 3 1/2 by 8, and this piece here, which is my layer, is 7 3/4 by 3 1/4. So I'm going to put this down first, and I really do hope you'll have a go at making a slimline card. Just something a little different, and there are just so many possibilities with this style of card. So I'm going to get that on there first. And I was asked last time about the type of glue that I use. This is a solvent-based glue that I'm using, and it means that it does not warp your card because it's not water-based. The brand that I use is the Kalal, but in the States, I think the Beacon 3-in-1 is practically the same thing. So, and the other nice thing about this is this glue, when it dries, it becomes rock hard. So it's really, really strong. I do use also, sometimes, the craft adhesive, such as the Art Glitter, or it could be Cosmic Shimmer, or any number of other, the Eileens, that's a craft glue as well. This is a water-based one, but it doesn't take quite as much glue, so it usually does not warp your card or your paper, as long as you just don't soak it completely. And it dries clear, and it's really, really good. But you could also use double-sided tape for any of your cards as well, and I do that on occasion. So now I'm ready to put my topper on, or my mat and layer on, I should say. And as I said, I'm going to keep this fairly simple. You can always go back and add more to a card after you've finished it. If you think it needs a little more, you can do that. And this is paper that I actually made myself. So it's a digital pattern that I created from images that I bought from Creative Fabrica. And for a topper, it's going to be something really simple. It's just a sentiment, really. And it's this: too glam to give a damn. And I just printed this out on my home printer and then put it on a piece of scrap American craft card that I had. And I'm just going to place it somewhere on this card. I might put that towards the top. Could have some ribbon on here as well. That would be nice. But I'm just going to leave it like this. But I'm not going to put this on dimensionals either. I'm just going to put it onto some glue. And I think we'll put it about like that. And there's our first Slimline card. Of course, you could have inside stamped, or even have other pattern papers in here. Sometimes you'll see people put maybe patterns diagonal to the corner or along the bottom. You know, there are so many opportunities for you to make it uniquely your own. So, to give a damn, I should say, is done. Next is this one. This is a US size, the 8.5 by 7. And it's a little narrow, as you can see, than this one, but a little bit longer as well. So I've got my mat and layer cut for this one. So here's my mat. Again, it's 1/4 inch smaller, so it's 3 1/4 by 8 1/4. And then my decorative paper, my backing paper, is going to be, I think I've got this cut wrong. I'm going to have to take a little bit off on this. This one should be, since that's 8 1/4, this will be 8 by 3. And I think I've cut this to 3 1/4. So let me just cut that real quick. Over here to my trimmer. Okay, there's the 8 by 3. That's going to go on there like that. Also, another of my digital papers, I've called it Born to be a Unicorn, and it includes clip art, including and toppers such as this, which I've just put on some of the same black cardstock that I used for the mat. So if one cannot be a mermaid, then be a unicorn. And this, I'm going to use some foam tape to give it a little dimension. And as you can see, it's going to be a side fold card. So the orientation of my paper accommodates that, and like this. I'm going to put some foam tape on here. Like that. And I do usually like to put a little bit of glue on the back of my tape. It does two things for me. It helps me to position it, because I've got a little wiggle room. So if I put it down a little bit wrong and I want to change it, I've got an opportunity to do that. And also, it just keeps it more secure over time. So I'm going to place that. I'm just going to sort of rest it on there until I've got it where I want it. And then I can push it down into place. And we're just going to put that on the card base. That is our second Slimline card. Only this time it's a side fold. Well, things never quite go to plan. For some reason, my camera just stopped. But I didn't get too far, so not too much of a disaster. Now the third card, which I was just about to show you, is the one that was cut at 6.5 by 6.25 and then scored at the 3.25 inch mark. And for this, I decided to use just a card panel. As I told myself with my camera off, the panel is often used when the card maker is perhaps just stamping on the card, or they're making their own background, you know, something like that. And they use that as something they can go ahead and design and then place on top of the card. So that's what I've done in place of a mat. But I've also given you a tip on how to make your own mat if you don't have the colored cardstock, or especially the black. So what I did is I took my Sharpie and my ruler, and I just put a piece of scrap down, and then just went along the edges, making sure that I was in at least that 1/4 of an inch mark to make my mat. And you could do this with any color, doesn't have to be black. And that's how I made my own. Now, when I first started card making, and I was really clueless about mats and layers, and I'd seen someone making a card with a black mat, and I thought, but I don't have any black card. So out came the Sharpie, and I did have the white card, so I could make my own. Now this will then fit on here, and I made my own sort of topper for this. It's more or less a double mat. I've got my sentiment on here, my saying, eyebrows, the one thing that you can get into shape without exercising. And I put a piece of this paper ribbon. Now what I did was, rather than try to measure it out, I simply glued it on, and it was longer than the actual card, and then I could just go in the back of it and snip off the excess like that. And that brings me up to the point where I realized my camera was not actually running. So we've got this now ready to put onto our card. Now we're going to go on to the next two, the final two, and these are going to be a little different than what we've already seen in terms of the mini Slimline, and that is we're going to make a trifold. Now you can do this with the regular Slimline as well. If you, for example, have an A4 sheet, you could just fold that into thirds and make the same thing. But I'm going to show you how you can do this with 2 sheets of card if you want to make it a mini Slimline trifold. So this is cut at 6 by 6, and on its own, this is its own little mini Slimline. But in this case, we're going to take this and glue it on the back to this portion, the inside of this other matching card. You're going to go right up to the fold. So that means you'll have this flap here, and you'll have this flap here. So it's going to fold into a trifold. And you could have it, again, either way. That way or that way. So place our adhesive here. You could, if you wanted to, use the double-sided tape. I'm going to use the Kalal glue because that is very strong and should keep this from coming apart. And it also gives me that little bit of wiggle room to get it right into place like I want it. So I want to be sure that I'm going up to that edge. So just place it there, flat, and you can see that it's in that fold there. Give it a bit of pressure here. And then you would decorate as usual. So now you can fold that up and that down, and it still stands. But you have that little bit extra, or as you can see, you could have it as a side fold as well. My mat and layer, I have the mat cut at 1/4 inch smaller than this, so that means it's 2 3/4 by 5 3/4, and then another 1/4 inch down for my layer, which is 5 1/2 by 2 1/2. Oops, now you see I've gone and done it, haven't I? But we'll fix that in a moment. Mucky fingers. Okay. Rectify that just a bit. I've got this little stamp here. I'm just going to place it here in the corner like that, and our little mucky fingerprint is gone. And we're going to use a baby wipe this time. Clean my hands off. There we are. Just took a piece and cut it on the diagonal and made these 2 corners, which I'm going to put on here. Just leave a tiny little border around the edge there. Then I've got room for, if I wanted to, put another stamp in here or write a message. I'm going to keep this quite simple. I found this little sentiment in my stash, birthday wishes. Put that on with some foam tape. Birthday wishes. There's your trifold, and you wouldn't really know that it's 2 cards actually together. For the final card, I have another similar idea, except this is not going to be a trifold. It's going to be a full-length slimline. So you scored that at 1/2 inch there, and that is going to then be attached to the front of the card like that, and then it will fold out like so. You can have it either on the inside or indeed on the outside. Just going to fold that back again. You can have your join on the back there, or you could have it on the inside. I think I would rather have it on the outside. Final measurement of this card then is 3 1/4 by 6 1/4. So my mat is 3 by 6, and my layer is 2 3/4 by 5 3/4. This I found in my stash, something I'd stamped more than a year ago, I'm sure. I know the voices in my head aren't real, but sometimes their ideas are amazing. So I'm going to put that on here. This is a bit of whimsy. Put it on this piece of cardstock here. Then I have another image from Creative Fabrica. Just going to go with this, and that's this little cat here. Some cat love. Let's put this on. So it's coming to an end, this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and that you are going to have a go at making some of these slimline cards yourself. You could make them for birthdays, get well, anniversary, Christmas, and they don't require a large piece of cardstock or indeed the layered papers, so they can be quite economical to make as well. So there we have our full-length mini slimline. I'm bringing in the others in reverse order. We have our mini slimline trifold and our standard mini slimline. And for the last two, we have our Slimline, that's the US letter size cardstock, and the DL. So I hope you enjoyed that. I loved making these. I think they're something, a little different than your standard, 5 by 7 or 6 by 6 or 5 by 5. And the good thing about these for you US viewers is that they won't usually cost you any excess postage, as long as, depending on the bulk of them, if you had a lot of decoration on this, a lot of embellishments, and, you had stacks and stacks of foam, it might incur a surcharge, but usually this would fit through the standard US letter postage system. In the UK, it's a little different, so it really doesn't matter so much. We have both the letter and then the large letter cards that we can send, because we do tend to go big when it comes to cards. So go big or go home, as they say. But that's why you'll find a lot of 5 by 7 and 8 by 8s and so forth in UK card making. I've been thinking of some other ideas for future Crafting Friends Together premieres, like this one. And I thought, since we're coming up onto the holidays, it might be nice if I covered gift bags and gift boxes that you could make yourself, rather than, having to go out and buy something pre-made, and it may not be exactly what you wanted, or if you want to coordinate maybe your wrapping papers with your gift bags, I think I'd like to cover that for you as well. So just let me know in the comments below if you also have any suggestions, or if you indeed would like to have a go at maybe making some gift bags and some gift boxes. They are much easier than you would imagine. So thank you so much for joining me today for this Crafty Friends Together video. I'm enjoying this now. I've gotten over the shakes I had from my inaugural. I think I have, at least. But who knows? Once this goes live, I might be an absolute mess. So if you are subscribed to the channel, I do appreciate it. If you're not, please consider doing so today. Make sure that you click on the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any future uploads that I do. The important thing is to remember to choose all notifications. Otherwise, you're pretty much subjected to YouTube algorithms, and with a small channel like mine, I really don't get a whole lot of notice from YouTube. So any help you could give me would be much appreciated. And please do share this with your friends, especially if they're crafty friends and they would like to join in. I can't wait to see you next time. And in the meantime, please be safe and crafty hugs.